And away we go. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome, one and all, to Coffee Talk. It is time once again for Coffee Talk Live, where we will be having some discussion about what is going on in the world today. We'll take a look at some clips from the news, share a little bit of dialogue with those of you who are able to join us for the live portion. And if you are listening somewhere else and you would like to join the live portion, you can find us Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube, on Coffee Talk and Prepper University, at Coffee Talk Live and at Prepper University, as well as you can find me on X at Coffee Talk Chat and fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta. As we get ready to jump off, being joined by two felines in the room today. You can see Granny Smith snoozing in the chair behind me, and you might be able to see Monkey over my shoulder there sitting on top of the printer. And I'll go ahead and I will say hello to some of the people that have chosen to chime in on the live chat portion. I see Helter has joined us here today. Dragon is here. Brian is here. And David, glad you could make it. For those of you who chose to say hello, always appreciated. Not a requirement, but hey, why not? I see Kimberly has joined us as well. Again, I've got Monkey in the room. And Miss Granny Smith having a good snooze there. Armored has joined us. No shopping centers for me. And of course, we were not on yesterday, or I was not on yesterday, because there was just way too much going on. Way too much going on. And Legends wants to know if a parade float failed. And I guess that's a reference to my main image there. Not hardly. We're going to share this in a moment. We're going to get on with it to take a look at what's going on the news, and I'll explain the thumbnail. And there it is. This is what I'm alluding to. That's actually an even better shot than the one that I used for the meme, because Ronald McDonald does not tolerate insurrection. Ladies and gentlemen, Brian says McDonald's looks depressing now. They even started getting rid of the cool plaque spaces. Yeah, it looks like a subway terminal inside McDonald's with the kiosks and the plain white tile in a lot of them, and just the bland furniture. It's an unattractive building. They really don't want you hanging around. But yeah, this is the Thanksgiving Macy's parade, which had a Ronald McDonald float, a classic looking float with a car filled with Ronald and the classic McDonald Land gang from the 70s and 80s. And the parade was interrupted right in front of this float. And that's what this first article is going to be about. That is a Metro article, and it says protesters tackled to the ground after blocking Thanksgiving Day parade. And that is what you see right there. Protesters have been arrested at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade in New York after trying to block the iconic procession. 20 pro-Palestine supporters tried to stop the parade as the Ronald McDonald's balloon arrived on 6th Avenue. Images show protesters with signs reading, quote, "Don't celebrate genocide," being tackled to the ground by police. This is the second year protesters have attempted to stop the procession. Last year, a group glued their hands to the parade route, prompting Mayor Eric Adams to warn those against any plans of protest. Quote from Adams, "I really want to take the moment to tell those Grinches that believe they're going to disrupt the parade that it's not going to happen." Parade watchers were heard booing the group, with many in the crowd chanting USA as the protesters were arrested and taken away. And there you see in the shot the protesters being manhandled by law enforcement while the Ronald McDonald float looks on. This is the most interesting part of the whole damn parade right here. Look at these. Those are iconic shots. Primarily because of Ronald. I think that really helps to make it iconic. As I think that's I think that's it. There is a video clip I can let that run really quickly. There's the parade, and there you see at the bottom. There's a bunch of there's the little kitty car. Oh, ad. Hold on a moment, and I'll get rid of that. There's the car that has the Ronald McDonald and McDonald Land 70s and 80s characters in it, and the float. And pro-Palestinian protesters try to screw it up. Armored Ghost says the franchise has become more corporate over time. Well, it all started when they began trying to compete directly with Starbucks, and that popularity when they started the whole McCafe business, and they retrofitted all of their existing corporately owned and then eventually franchise owned McDonald's, the majority of them, to have the copper roofs and the McCafe logos and all of that for their awful smoothies and coffees and stuff that I can't even drink because they're awful. Helter says they'll never try this during a football game or NASCAR because they know it wouldn't end well. Cyberjack Sr. has joined us, as well as Frankie and Fluke Man. Tuck says, I never watched the parade. I didn't know this happened. Yeah, I don't watch the parade either, because to me, parades are just kind of boring. But this was entertaining. And like I said, it made for some really iconic, and I'll open that up again, one of them, really iconic photographs on account of the Ronald float in the background overlooking police hammering people into the street. I love it. Note, however, this is where it gets interesting. So-called pro-Palestinian protesters, they want to protest at colleges and universities, and they block traffic on highways and all this sort of thing, and it takes forever to move them. Oh, get in front of a float in the parade and watch how quickly 100 cops show up and pound the crap out of you and drag you away. Dragon says masks for cowards. If they're serious about their convictions, they wouldn't feel the need to hide their faces. Protesters in the 60s and 70s had the balls to show their face. Brian says self-checkouts ask for tips, and I'm like, no, I don't blame you. I do not blame you. But yeah, iconic photographs there. That's why I took the liberty of making that meme about Ronald McDonald and insurrection. While the McDonald's stormtroopers will come out and put down your protest really quickly. And again, what do these people even know about so-called, I should say, Palestine? What do they know about the history of the region? What do they know about the tribal mentality of the people that live out there, or Gaza, or Israel, or anything? These are people, they want to lash out and protest something, and they're misdirected, and they don't know what to do, because they don't know one damn thing for real about anything that goes on out there. But they want to sit there and essentially tear down Western civilization, which would ultimately be their own demise, because these people would not be tolerated in the Middle East. These people and their actions and their lifestyles and everything else would not be tolerated, and they would be executed for it, because the Middle East is brutal. The people they're defending are brutal beyond comprehension, while they sit there crying about being arrested for this. At least they didn't try to glue their hands to the street, but I don't think they could, because it was raining. It was raining out. Whew, wow. Brian says they don't know jack shit. They just want a virtue signal. And Legend says Columbus recently had, I believe, a neo-Nazi protest somewhere downtown. Really sad. We covered that story. There was only like 7 of them. I don't know what happened. They marched around a block and disappeared into a van or something. And the media blew that mess up, though. If I'm thinking of the right one, they were dressed all in black, and they had a black flag with a red marker on it. Yeah, I don't know what that was. Some kind of staged event. H12 has joined us. But yeah, I really, really question whether or not that was an actual Nazi protest, or it was just something that was supposed to trigger people. Because, when I saw the story, I'm like, oh, wow, what the hell is this? And you open it up and you can't even find 6 or 7 people in any of the photographs. And, even the news story said it was 12, but I didn't see more than 7 in any picture. But anyways, I didn't. That doesn't mean there wasn't, but I didn't see it. Some great meme material here with that Ronald float. You gotta love it. I hope they bring Ronald back. If they did, they'd probably ruin it though. So that's the unfortunate reality of whenever they do revive something nostalgic, something pop culture or retro, they kind of ruin it. They make a sequel to something that didn't need a sequel. They reboot something that is standalone, that is fine right where it was whenever it was originally filmed or aired on TV. Savage says they marched around for a few minutes long enough to have news take pictures. Exactly. And Flukeman says companies asking for tips for self-checkouts is bloody cheek. Does the U.S. allow employers to pay their employees the bare minimum so the employee has to make the tips to make up for what they need? Well, if you are an employee that is collecting gratuities primarily, those gratuities, that is, if you get tips, you're a waitress in a restaurant, can be incredible. So there is a minimum wage that is separate for wait staff. But in the places where you're seeing that, and the example I've used is Steak and Shake, there's nobody in there. And the staff that's in the kitchen doesn't get a wait staff minimum wage. They get a normal salary wage, or they get a normal hourly wage rather, salary if they're management, hourly if they're regular employees. So for it to ask for a gratuity for no wait staff, there's nobody there, then that's ridiculous. Who is it going to? Why am I doing this? Those guys are already getting a regular wage. You give a tip, as it were, to your waitress, because that waitress, her minimum wage is much lower than the average minimum, because they anticipate gratuities. They anticipate that, if you made $20 in wages, you probably still made $60, $80 in tips somewhere. And yeah, we're like the only place on earth that does that. I don't know where that tradition comes from off the top of my head. And also, this is part of the reason why Trump said that he's going to try to eliminate taxing that gratuity, taxing those tips. Which brings us to Elon Musk and the IRS. In a New York Post article, which I thought this was interesting, Elon Musk asks if the IRS should be deleted after the agency begs for $20 billion. Yeah, the agency has overspent and is in the red. The IRS owes money back to the federal government. It doesn't have it. Billionaire Elon Musk asked social media users Wednesday if the Internal Revenue Service should be deleted, a day after a top Biden-Harris administration official urged Congress to give the federal agency $20 billion. The IRS just said, and this is Musk quoting, the IRS just said it wants $20 billion in more money. The world's richest person then asked users for their thoughts on the tax authority's budget situation. Questions. Do you think its budget should be A, increased, B, the same, C, decreased, or D, deleted? Musk asked in a poll, and I'll give you the results here. It says more than 60% of ex-users preferred having the IRS's budget completely deleted. Yeah, no shit. It's only 3.9% said the federal agency's budget should remain the same. 5.6% thought it needs more money. 29.9% said the IRS budget should be decreased. And 60.6% said that the IRS should have no budget at all. And at the time that this article was written, there was close to 250,000 votes on that particular poll. Savage says, when my lady served at Buffalo Wild Wings, she could make $200 to $750 a week in tips alone. Holidays were straight killer. Yeah, and weekends, Friday and Saturday in particular, I think, right? Because I worked at IHOP when I was a kid, and Fridays and Saturdays in there were jumping off. Sunday mornings up until about 2-ish, 2 or 3, were pretty busy. You get the church crowd out there. So, yeah, I mean, a waitress can clean up on tips, and that's why her minimum wage is, or his or her minimum wage is lower than the standard minimum wage across the board. Kimberly says, is Trump talking about allocated tips? I'm not sure. Monkey says 212,000 votes on it, better than those $1,000 polls on voters. Yeah, because most of the time when you see polls and they say, such and such poll says that Kamala Harris is going to win the election, and you read it, you find out they interviewed 560 people and a cherry picked in a select group. That's bullshit. At least this, he throws the poll out there, and there might be even more numbers on that poll now than when this was shot. And that still shot right here was taken at 9:51 a.m. on the 27th, 2 days ago. So it could be even bigger numbers by now. Fluke Man says, where is the IRS will get that money if they can't get it from the government looking at their citizens? Yes, that's where the money always comes from. And I had just read an article. I don't have it copied, but I read an article last week where the IRS was bragging that it had acquired or received back 1.3 billion in defaults. So they pursued people that owed and recovered 1.3 billion last year, or in this cycle in the 2024 tax season. But 1.3 billion in comparison to how much money the IRS works with, it's a drop in the bucket, as they say. Also, I have to wonder how much was spent acquiring that money. I wonder about that with collection agencies sometimes, and the IRS in particular, in investigations, in intimidation tactics with agents bullying people, in courtrooms, in research, and all the things that they have to do or had to do to recover that so-called 1.3 billion. How much did they spend? How much did they spend? 4 billion maybe? It doesn't make any sense. I'm guessing, because I don't have numbers in front of me. I don't have raw data, but often it seems like more money is spent in collections than the actual debt is ultimately worth. Monkey says he just looked, it stopped right at 212,540. Okay, so he must have closed it. He must have closed out the poll. Savage says, why Trump puts Vivek and Elon in charge of government efficiency. Vivek said we could cut 70% of unnecessary jobs in government, cut out the fat, and you don't need so many taxes. Yeah, that's always my argument. I've been saying it for years that we could probably, the government that is, could operate on half easily of what it takes in taxes from its citizens if it didn't misuse, mismanage, and misappropriate so much of the funding. It gets wasted, it gets stolen. If that wasn't going on, you wouldn't need half. You wouldn't need the half of it. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. Obviously, a lot of people do not like the IRS. Wow. It goes on to say the massive shortfall appears to be the result of text included in stopgap congressional legislation passed in September to keep the federal government funded until December 20th. Congressional Republicans have tucked a $20 billion IRS enforcement cut into the government funding legislation, according to the Wall Street Journal. Adeyemo urged Congress to unlock the $20 billion in funds for the IRS in the upcoming budget battle, claiming that without the money, some $140 billion would be added to the national deficit by way of thousands of fewer audits for the wealthy and large corporations. And this is something I'm really sick and tired of when it comes to talking about the IRS. And when you hear from politicians, they love flouting this. Thousands of fewer audits for the wealthy and large corporations. That is a lie. The IRS, their primary target is you and me. You and me. They rarely go after large corporations like that and big targets, because those big targets have already covered their asses. That's why they have an army of accountants and tax attorneys to make sure that there are no mistakes, so that they won't get audited. And when you do audit a corporation like that, you're wasting millions of dollars and getting almost no results out of it. The IRS, that type of audit enforcement, goes after the little guy who can't afford a tax attorney and can't afford an accountant and doesn't have records going back 20 years or whatever. Savage says only reason Social Security is so bad is because the government let loans be taken out that couldn't be paid back. Now it's empty. They need to stop the Social Security borrowing. Yeah, and during the Biden-Harris administration, it was pilfered again. Monkey says their mom really thinks Elon and Vivek are going to somehow screw Trump over. No, they don't need to, or be jealous of Elon getting the attention. No, I don't see it. I don't see it. There's nothing to be jealous of. Elon can never be president because he's not a natural born citizen. Savage wants us to remember income tax was temporary to fund World War II. That's right. It was never removed after the war. U.S. functioned fine without income tax before that. And one more here from Monkey. He says, also think that Dodge agency will be funded despite Elon himself saying him and Vivek are doing it for free. That's right, because they were that accusation came up. Why are we paying for both of you to do this job? And Elon said, hey, we volunteered. We volunteered. Elon's got something to prove, and so does Vivek, actually. So does Ramaswamy, because he wants to run for president someday. If he can do a good job here, that's a good jumping off point in the future if he were to run for president again. You know what I'm saying? Just makes sense. So, no, they've got something to prove, and they're going to do the job, and they're going to try to do it quick, I think. They're going to do it as quickly as possible because, as Ramaswamy put it, again, if we don't get it off now, it'll never happen because they'll never let us get this close again. I agree. Paraphrasing a little bit, but you get the point. Paraphrasing a little bit as we get ready to roll off. But yeah, I'd like to see the IRS reduced as well, because regardless of what they tell you, and they're always on, oh, we got to make the 1%ers pay their fair share. And, the people that earn that kind of income, of the 1%, the highest 1%, account for 45% of income tax. I think they're more than paying their fair share. And I'm not jealous of the fact that they have more money than me. I don't care. I don't care. I really don't. But it doesn't hurt those people as much as it hurts the rest of us whenever they screw around. We're the ones they really go after the majority of the time. So it's a big lie. Savage says, reminds us Elon trimmed Twitter's fat big time and made it profitable again. Yeah, it's a challenge for people like that sometimes. He's got something to prove. He wants to show that he's right. He wants to show that he's right. Of course, it is Black Friday and Cyber Monday coming up. So, of course, we got to play games again with Amazon. News Nation article, Amazon workers are on strike from Black Friday to Cyber Monday. So here we go. Amazon workers across 20 countries, including the United States, are striking against what the organizing labor union calls anti-worker and anti-democratic practices. Where the hell does that come from? This is the 5th year Uni Global Union has spearheaded the, quote, Make Amazon Pay movement with the aim to hold Amazon accountable for labor abuses, environmental degradation, and threats to democracy. Amazon's a threat to democracy? Quote, Bezos' company has spent untold millions to stop workers from organizing, but the strikes and protests happening around the world show that workers' desire for justice, for union representation, can't be stopped, according to Christy Hoffman, the General Secretary of Uni Global Union. We stand united in demanding that Amazon treat its workers fairly, respect fundamental rights, and stop undermining the system meant to protect us all. Amazon spokesperson Eileen Hards said the group is misleading and promotes a false narrative. Her quote, the fact is, at Amazon, we provide great pay, great benefits, great opportunities, all from day one. We've created more than 1.5 million jobs around the world and counting, and we provide a modern, safe, and engaging workspace, whether you work in an office or in one of our operating buildings. All right. So I'm going to pick this apart really quickly here. And Flukeman reminds us only U.S.-born citizens can be president, but people like Biden can. That doesn't sound good. Helter says Amazon will get the last laugh when the robot replacements come in. And Amazon has been slowly replacing its people with robots. We've shown them. We've shown them in video clips on this podcast before. Even humanoid robots that carry boxes. They'll get rid of all these suckers if they go full union. Now, there's a couple of points I want to make. You know how I am about unions because I've been in unions and I found them to be useless except for making trouble. They act more as static between workers and management than they do any kind of benefit. So this is the 5th year in a row that for a couple of days, there's going to be a moderate strike across the board in 20 countries. And then come Tuesday morning, they'll just have a really big workload that they got to catch up on because they're going to go back to work. All right. It's pointless to strike for a couple of days. You think Amazon cares? All they'll do is when you place your order, it'll let you know, oh, well, delivery time will be on this day. They're telling you what to expect already. Expect your package on Thursday instead of Tuesday. Okay, most people really don't care. So you go ahead and you call in sick for a couple of days and then bust your ass Tuesday morning because you've got triple the workload. Makes perfect sense to me. Also, I don't understand how Amazon is a threat to democracy. That's a quote from the global union leader. I don't understand what that means. And they talk about the lousy work environment. Well, of course it's a lousy work environment. You know, I can't imagine it's any better than UPS. I worked at UPS in their warehouse. It was a terrible job. But I take responsibility for that because I knew the job was going to suck, number one, and I knew what the pay was going to be, number two. I still took the job. When I complain about UPS, I don't complain about the pay or the specific workload because I knew it was going to suck. What I didn't like was they were not honest about the training. They were not honest about the truckloads because they told me I'd never work on more than 3 trucks and I got 5 every day. And they told me that I would stay at a specific station, but they bounced me between 3 different areas of the warehouse. So I was in 3 different divisions, and then I'd come back and have to load my trucks, and there'd be a huge mess there because nobody was doing the job, or if someone was doing the job, they were careless, and then they want to write me up for packages being on the wrong truck. I'm like, I didn't do that shit. But stuff like that used to piss me off, and the fact that the union was worthless. You talk to anyone from the union, you got nothing but double talk from them. Helter says Amazon will get the, oh, I read that. Yeah, the robots. Tuck says I haven't ordered anything from Amazon in about 2 years. I think the last time I bought anything, I sent a donation to Grindstone, which was summer of 23. Fluke Man worked for Amazon years ago. They treat people awfully. Yeah, I can't imagine, like I said, that it's any better than my UPS experience. Tuck says threat to democracy is the latest literally Hitler. And H12 says it sounds like the old S&T hardware warehouse. Yeah, I don't understand how it's supposed to be a threat to democracy. I think that's just something everybody likes to say nowadays. If they go on strike again, who gives a damn? They're only going to be taking a couple of days off, and then they're going to have to go right back to the grind. If they did get unionized somehow, and yeah, it is within the company's best interest to resist unionization, because it causes a lot of problems for the corporation as well as the workers. So yeah, they're going to resist it. Unions today are not what they were 100 years ago, not by a long shot. They're very political, and they're very disruptive. They're very divisive. And it's just more encouragement for them to replace their workers with mechanized systems, which is happening. Slowly happening and across the board, across the globe in Amazon. So this is just foolish. To me, it is. Then they'll be complaining they have no job. Amazon laid me off, replaced me with a robot. I got replaced with a robot too. Jericho says UPS was a nightmare. UPS was a nightmare. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes. I wanted to play this. This is something that was brought to my attention, and I wanted to talk about it really quick. And this is a video clip of when they think, I think this is the right one, because they think that Harris was drunk. Tuck says if they really want to stick it to the man, the strike has to last at least 5 years. Yeah, that's it. That's it. They can stand out there in the rain next to a giant inflatable rat. You ever seen those? They get the big inflatable rat that they put out and lose their jobs, and then complain about that. Fluke Man says, didn't unions beat people up voting different political parties 100 years ago? Yeah, they would hire anybody. And I forget what his name is. He was a railroad tycoon, and he said he could always hire half the people. I know I'm misquoting this. He could hire half of the poor to beat down the other half. And basically what he means is that all it took was to go down to the docks or wherever and just hire 500 guys and give them all a club, give everybody a bat and a dollar, and they'll come out and bust up any union protest. We'll bust up any union protest. I'm going to see if I can get this expanded here. There we go. There's your friend Harris. And this is the argument, because it says Kamala Harris obviously drunk while speaking. And I had not seen this video before. I don't think I've seen it, but I'm going to play it for you, and hopefully the audio is good. Let me know if there's a problem. Frankie says it's a treat to democracy because the robots will become self-aware. Hail Cyberdyne. Yeah, get on board with that quick before you get deleted. So I'll play this clip, and I'll tell you what I noticed about this. This is why I think it might be plausible.
Because when we think about the strength of our democracy, I think that there's a duality to the nature of democracy. When it's intact, it's so strong in terms of what it does to uphold and protect individual rights and freedoms. So strong in its nature. And is very fragile.
That right there is what gets me. I don't know if anyone caught that at the like 26 to 28 second mark, and I'll run it again, and I'll tell you why. I noticed something about her body language just then.
It will only be as strong as our willingness to fight for it.
Okay, I'm going to back it up again. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you what I spotted.
It is very fragile.
Watch her head.
It will only be as strong as our willingness to fight. It is very fragile.
Okay, well, what the hell am I talking about here? What am I talking about here? Jericho says, where's the democracy? I don't know. I can't find it. Armored Ghost says they seem to be, I'm sorry here. It says the political action is strange now. The left still has TDS, but there was hardly any street violence post-election. The online hysteria is there, but mostly uninteresting. They also seem to have infighting between moderates and radicals. Now I'm going to stop screen sharing here for a second. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about, and you can find this clip for yourself. You can cut that out. Stop sharing. There we go. You can find this clip for yourself and see what I'm talking about. Now, what I noticed was a bobbling right there where she's talking. And for those of you who can see, and then suddenly she's like, she gets that bobble with her head, that little tremor with her head and that tilt like this, like what I'm doing right now. If I'm copying that correctly, this is like that. All people says wiggles neck equals drunk. Now, I've noticed that for many, many years because my mother used to do that. She used to be on a very strong prescription medication of chloral hydrates back in the old days when they would give you chloral hydrates to control your behavior. After she'd take her dose, she would like that. She would talk and she would like be upright, and then suddenly she'd get that tremor like that. And I've also seen that with people that are heavily medicated, as well as people who are kind of sloshed. They've been drinking a lot. So never mind the word salad of her sitting there talking about just whatever, because the things that she was saying, they didn't quite fit. But that trembling head there, like suddenly, to me is so familiar that gives me the impression of alcohol or some kind of medication. Graythorn says, I figured she was falling back to Indian roots, but yeah, that makes sense too. Okay. And I'll run that one more time so that you can see it. But I believe this is the clip that everybody's been talking about. Here it comes. Right there. And it's kind of subtle. It's kind of subtle because she, if she is heavily medicated or drunk, she's functional. She's functional. Frankie says anything she says doesn't quite fit ever. Yeah, there you go. There you go. But yes, I mean, if she's an alcoholic, she's a functional alcoholic. If she's on medication or any narcotic, she's functional. She's functional. But that's to me, that was the tell. As I've said before, I've seen that many times. And Cyberjack Sr. says he can't see anything. You didn't see the video clip? You didn't see the video clip that time? Hang on a second. I'll run it one more time. So I'll put it back up. And there she goes.
Because when we think about the strength of our democracy, I think that there's a duality to the nature of democracy. When it's intact, oh, it's so strong in terms of what it does to uphold and protect individual rights and freedoms. So strong in its nature.
Right here. Here it comes.
And it's very fragile.
That little tumble right there.
It will only be as strong as our willingness to fight for it.
All people suggest that's the exact condition the handlers would have kept her in for 4 years had she stolen the Oval Office. Had she stolen it. Now, speaking of cringy video clips, I don't know if anyone has seen this yet. And this is connected with the actresses who starring in Wicked. And I just want to read this really quickly, and I'll show the image. I don't think I'm going to be showing any video clip from it. But they've been in an interview. They've been doing interviews together, and it's pretty bizarre. The two of them are pretty bizarre together. It's kind of hard to describe. New York Post article. This wacky, wicked interview about holding space has perplexed the internet. So the stars of the long-awaited silver screen adaptation of the Broadway smash Wicked. I don't know if it's a long-awaited silver screen adaptation. I think that's a bit of a stretch, but whatever. Have been widely ridiculed for the cringeworthy press tour behavior ahead of the release, culminating with a recent interview that went viral for being completely nonsensical. In a clip shared tens of millions of times online, Out magazine reporter Tracy Gilchrist tells co-stars Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo that she heard people were talking or taking the lyrics of Defying Gravity, one of the musical's big numbers, and really holding space with that and feeling power in that. Erivo, who's 37, clasps her hands to her chest, visibly emotionally bowled over by Gilchrist's inscrutable assemblage of nouns and verbs. Quote, "I didn't know that was happening. That's really powerful," she said, nearly breathless. Said Gilchrist, confirming Erivo was appropriately moved by the revelation. That's what I wanted. Erivo said of the 20-year-old song, which was written by renowned composer Stephen Schwartz. She turns to look at Grande, who solemnly nods her head in apparent agreement before clutching her co-star's index finger. "I didn't know that was happening," the Brit actress squeaked, her voice catching in her throat. "I've seen it in a couple of posts. I didn't know it was that widespread," blah, blah, blah. I could go on reading this. There's really no point. The thing that's weird about it, and you can see it in this image, is just the bizarre physical, tactile behavior between the two of them. Like they're on their honeymoon or something. And bizarre responses and being tearful in interviews. And if you look at the two of them here in this image, they look anorexic, both of them. They look disgusting. They can't be 80 pounds apiece. It's really disgusting. They look bizarre, and their behavior has been very bizarre in the interview process. Fluke Man says they remember that in the movie Flight with D. Washington, a scene where he was drunk and took cocaine to cancel out the alcohol. All People says the TV judge named Joe Brown did a great intimidation of Kamala's infamous word salad. Tuck says maximum cringe. All People says Ariana Grande is from a generational cult family. Her mother's a famous record executive who launched her kid's career at the creepy Nickelodeon network. But the two of them, they look really abnormally thin. They look, again, I don't think I have a copy of the video clip. They look abnormally thin. They look very in the interviews, if that makes any sense. They look afraid or confused. The behavior, if I was to hazard a guess, again, based on personal experience, not personal experience, but I guess professional experience would be a better description, is antidepressants, large doses of antidepressants. Fluke Man says, looks like they're touching hands when they're sitting down. They are. They don't break contact. They're touching each other constantly. Arms, hands, fingers, face. They're in constant physical contact. Brian thinks that anorexia is more disgusting than obesity. And it can do a considerable amount of damage to your body as well. Even your teeth. You can lose your teeth because of anorexia. It's pretty nasty. But yeah, their clinginess, the confused or frightened even looks on their faces, the unhinged emotional reactions where out of nowhere they start choking up, getting teary-eyed, or trying to hold back tears. It's like, where's this emotion coming from? Where is this emotion coming from? Is this, you got to wonder what the hell is the state of a lot of these modern celebrities. I mean, we had some weirdos in our day. Michael Jackson was a pretty bizarre guy, but at least he could carry on a conversation. I don't know what to think of these people. I mean, how desperately out of touch with everyone are you? They look like they're visiting from another planet and that they were captured and they're in the middle of an interview with like federal agents and they're scared. It's bizarre. It's really bizarre. Tuck says creepy leftos, and Frankie says they might be taking the same thing as Kamala. Kamala's a lot more animated. They're all people says bulimia also causes tooth loss due to the stomach acid. Yeah, from the constant regurgitation. That's right. Because you force yourself to throw up all the time. These two look crazy. And then here again, another one of these weird images with their odd behavior. Again, like they're lovers or something. Or, hey, maybe they are. What the hell do I know? But it's really, really odd. Really odd, creepy behavior from these two. And again, wondering what the root of that might be. Is it that they're so desperately out of touch with reality because they're so sheltered? Is it because of some kind of medication? Again, I mean, I've seen that weird look from people that are on a lot of antidepressants. Maybe they're on a lot of meds. Maybe that's how Hollywood keeps them in check. I don't know what to say about that. I don't know what to say about that. And then their body conformity. I mean, are they trying really hard to look like their Barbie doll likenesses? Which are no longer on the shelves, of course, because they had to be recalled. As many of you are aware, Mattel made a mistake and put the, or so they claim, and put the website to a porno internet connection rather than to the Wicked movie website. Cyberjack says MK Ultra. Hey, I just thought it was really bizarre because I've seen, and I don't have the clip pulled up for them, but I've seen some weirdness with them in those interviews. They're hard to watch because you don't know what the hell's going on with them. It's like, what is wrong with these people? You almost feel sorry for them. Honestly, I feel sorry for them because they're so out of touch, so frighteningly out of touch. Since it's Thanksgiving, or was, we may as well give back more to the Indians, right? Newsweek article: Tribe regains hunting, fishing, and gathering rights after decades. Really? A federal court has restored hunting, fishing, and gathering rights to the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians, ending restrictions tribal leaders fought against for 40 years. The ruling, celebrated at the tribe's annual powwow in Oregon earlier this month, marks a significant victory in the Siletz's struggle to reclaim sovereignty over Native American practices. Quote, "We're back to the way we were before," says Dolores Pigsley, chairman of the Siletz tribe. "It feels really good." Dolores Pigsley. Okay. The restrictions imposed as part of a 1980 federal deal capped how much wildlife the tribe could harvest for ceremonial and subsistence purposes and subjected members to state hunting and fishing rules. While the 1980 agreement and consent decree allowed the tribe to recover 3,600 acres of its ancestral lands, this came in exchange of risking arrest for upholding their traditions. Which I'm going to tell you, they probably weren't doing anymore anyways. I got some things to say about this. So giving up those rights was a terrible thing, said Pigsley, who has led the tribe for 36 years. It was unfair at the time, and we've lived with it all these years. The Siletz tribe, a confederation of more than 20 bands and tribes, traditionally occupied lands across western Oregon, northern California, and southwestern Washington. Now, here's the trick. First of all, they wanted to acquire an additional 3,600 acres. The government said, okay, but you can't overhunt and fish this land. Those tribal leaders agreed to it at that time, and then from the day they signed the contract, pissed and moaned about it. If you didn't agree, you shouldn't have signed the contract, but the land was more important to you. The land was more important to you. Okay, for whatever reason you wanted it. Secondly, I've seen where this has happened before. I forget who it was. I forget which. I can't remember the names of all these tribes or where they were, but they had regained their native fishing rights, and they put up a cat food plant there. Does this sound familiar to anyone? Fished the river into extinction, bagging it up for cat food. And it also makes me think of the Inuits who petitioned for the rights to hunt walrus because they're indigenous peoples who traditionally eat walrus. But they've been challenged for decades, really, the last 20 years or so, I believe, because there's tons of video footage of them killing walrus, cutting their heads off, and selling the ivory tusks on the black market. So they don't give a shit about the walruses or tradition. I don't know what it is. It's one of those things, actually, in the media where they love portraying Native Indians as being so wholesome and pure and in touch with nature, but they are no less deceitful, selfish, or evil as any other person from any other walk of life. And all people thinks there's no way that wicked website was an error from from Mattel. Yeah, that had to have slipped through a lot of QC to get out there like that. Tuck says he's definitely overweight. Oh, he's talking to somebody else there. All People says Indian protesters and activists and demanders are full of crap. Most Indians are thoroughly integrated into modern society and not trapped in trying to live out the old days. No. No. This is a load of crap. They want access to those resources so they can exploit them. They're not all wholesome and in touch with nature and tears running down their cheeks and whatever. It's a lie. Granted, there may be a handful that are like that, but it ain't the activists and it's not the tribal leaders either. They know what they're doing. They're exploiting their own resources. They're exploiting them. And All People says exactly it's an act to get away with not following the same rules as the rest of society. I mean, yeah, granted, okay, they lost their ancestral lands, or their ancestors lost the ancestral lands. But I'm sorry, in many cases, that was centuries ago. Sometimes you just got to move on. Every society has been through that. Every society has been through that. And that sounds really callous, and there are people who would attack me for that, but that's just the way it is. It's just the way that it is, unfortunately. But yeah, it's just going to get exploited. It's going to get exploited. The people who exploit Native Indians the most are their own tribal councils. That's the unfortunate reality of it. And these activists don't speak for everyone. But, you know, here they go. Here's their powwow. Looks like it's in a hotel ballroom. Oh, we can hunt and fish again without having to have a permit. So give it about 10 years. You won't even be able to find a chipmunk in that forest. All People suggests that activists live in suburban and urban areas and want to boss other Indians around by stealing our voice and claiming we feel something that we do not. And I can see that. I can agree with that statement. And that is Dolores Pigsley, who has been, I guess, the president of that council or the representative for the last 36 years. And I always go back to it. You took the deal. This isn't like 300 years ago where they gave you a document and you put an X on it and you didn't know what you were doing. Okay? That was unfair. These contracts, you understood. And now you've got over on the federal government again because you got to keep that land and the restriction has been lifted. Tuck says tribal councils, city halls, HOAs, it's all the same. Yeah. And school board meetings and you name it. Town hall meetings. It's all the same. It's all the same. So yeah, big victory. Congratulations. Congratulations. Good luck with that. And then when things go badly, those same activists and leaders will convince them that it's still the government's fault. White man did it. White man did it to you. It was John Wayne. All People says some of these self-appointed tribal councils and leaders are the Indian equivalent of the Klan. Just like the Klan does not represent most whites, these activists don't represent us. Yeah, exactly. Or just like I've heard black people say Al Sharpton doesn't represent me or Jesse Jackson doesn't represent me. Where do they get off? Same difference. These activists that want to speak for everyone. Who the hell are you? Who the hell are you to speak for me? I didn't ask for your help. I don't want nothing from you. But who have I got? Granny, are you the only one left? Oh, Monkey is under the desk here. There he is. There's Monkey, keeping me company. And then Granny Smith in the chair behind me stayed with me the entire time as we get ready to wrap up. Again, you are listening to and or watching Coffee Talk, and you can find the live portion Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube. You can find me on X at Coffee Talk Chat. You can find me on fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta. Hope everybody had a good day yesterday, good weekend if you've got the whole weekend. And we will catch you again. Oh, and of course, thank you everybody for coming in, because I know people probably have a busy weekend if they're dealing with family, especially.